All right, Be Your Release Podcast, Episode 7. Bethany Schwank here with me again today.
You're already on 7?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I guess it's co-host. You're going to have to, talk a little bit more.
Okay. I'll talk.
No, you're, almost whispering a little bit.
Am I?
I mean, I think that the first one we did, it was just a little bit I was super loud and you were...
It was too quiet?
I don't know.
Okay.
So Bethany, what are we talking about today?
I think we're talking about energy management. Is that what we're talking about?
Energy management. So I think that's one of the, I wrote on it, a couple of weeks ago, I think, where the three different, I try to compartmentalize things and keep it as simple as possible. We joke about that all the time. You're like, it's not that simple, Dave. And I'm like, it's kind of that simple. It can be.
It can be.
It can be as complex or as simple as we make it. And I think that's kind of the point of it. It's do you really want to, and I think there is that fine balance of oversimplification, then you'll miss a bunch of specific emotions around things, or maybe not consider somebody that it may have affected, or some, all these different little outlying things. But so I think you can't oversimplify, but I think simplification is better than that middle ground of modern, in my experience. I just don't think that putting too much thought and too much energy, trying to make a decision around something and where you're actually putting it in, because the thing about energy is it's you're trying to get some of it in return from whatever you're putting energy in. So I guess that's kind of some of the basis is where are we putting energy in, and then what type of energy we're receiving back.
Do you feel like people have a finite supply of energy, or that?
I think and that was one of the things where when we were talking about that, it was there's this notion of resiliency. That some people are just more resilient than others. And I think that there's some truth to that, in the sense that some people are just more physically resilient and some are a little bit more emotional resilient. And whether that's the combination of genetics or environment or perspective, however they got to that, because remember that journey and that path of somebody on how it looks, their perception of how much energy they actually have is just a little bit different from individual to individual. So that's why I kind of like this bigger idea of here's the 3 areas where you can put it, how much you've had, how much you have, how much you've built. But I do think that there is a specific amount of, if you were to take 1,000 people, if there was a way to measure energy, I think there's a middle line of there are going to be some outliers to one end. Some may have a little bit less and some may have a little bit more, but generally speaking, all of us have.
There's a general expectation.
There's an average, I think.
I can see that.
Because where do you think you fall on that spectrum?
I think I fall on the low end of that spectrum.
On the low end?
Yeah. I don't know. I think I have more resilience than some people, but my emotional resilience is pretty low. I get...
Yeah, but as an outsider looking in, just from our conversations and stuff, I think you have more resiliency and more. I don't think if we're just using energy as our specific, I don't think you're on the low end. I just think you spend so much energy and you're not mindful of where it's going, so then it feels like you don't have a lot.
That's true. I can see that.
Because you do a shitload of stuff and you have a lot of stuff going on in your life. And I think a lot of us do that, and I don't think we take enough credit of there's just that kind of default or I don't even know. It's not self-hate, but it's not self-love. It's not enough to where you're acknowledging how powerful and how strong and how well and how much energy you're actually putting out. It's just at what point in our lives do we go, hey, I've got to renegotiate and triage where I'm actually putting this stuff now, because you can take all of that energy and dump 100% of it into a ton of stuff early on, and then I think resiliency for me is the people that can do that longer, or they recover from it a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the issue lies, is when are you recognizing when you're hitting that point of I've been spending way too much energy in too many areas? Because if you spend too much time into that to where you're starting now, things are starting to fall apart and starting to crumble, and now you're starting to question all these different things. The longer you stay in that unknown space, the more damage it does to yourself internally, I think is really what it is. And I think that's one of the things that I've been very mindful of my entire life is like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time putting energy into a lot of different areas if there's not some return, some long-term kind of return, because a lot of us get to that, like, whether it's guilt or it's shame or it's whatever, but we have a hard time saying no.
Yeah.
Especially the fixers and the caregivers. Like, it's just like someone asks you for something and you're like, yeah, sure,
Absolutely.
I can find another 15 minutes for that somewhere. And it's like, that's the stuff that adds up over time. It's those 10,000 little yeses throughout the day when they probably should have been 9,000 no's and 1,000 yeses, So the management of that, I guess, is kind of the topic of today.
Yeah. So I know this is just one area, but I was reading the High Performance book by Brendan Bouchard last night. And he was talking about how he sees the tendency in high performers to be able to differentiate between emotion and feeling. And so when they get into those high stress situations where it saps a lot of their energy, like say you're in a meeting and things get heated and people start yelling at one another, they recognize the emotion and then choose their feelings.
Oh, yeah. Well, and so do you think that there's a blurred line where people think that feelings and emotions are synonymous instead of like...
Absolutely.
One is what's happening, and then your reaction is the other.
Yeah. So he defined emotion as something you can't control and feelings as your response to it. I'd just never separated the two in my brain before.
Because I would think that like oh, okay, yeah, I could see how like emotion is an uncontrolled response where you get, the butterflies in the stomach and the sweat comes over and the instant pit in the gut, and you're like, that's either some kind of like sadness or fear or whatever, and then now you're choosing what to feel around that. I want to feel hurt because of the sadness that just happened, or I want to feel neutral about it to figure out what the lesson was, and then I'm going to feel happy because it gave me X, which is a really hard place to be in, because if we talk about extremes like a death in the family or something, like how do you celebrate the life of the death of somebody that you're never going to see again? How do you find happiness in that without feeling so much grief? So then there's that question of how do you balance all of those in the same?
Well, you talked last time about last time we talked about how you had chosen to find purpose in some of the deaths of your teammates.
Yeah, meaning. Yeah.
And that was interesting to me because my brain goes to like, do you just, that you're sort of tricking yourself out of that emotional response.
Yeah, but then you could argue that it's a trick. You're tricking yourself to live in grief.
Yeah.
Like, which one's the truth?
Yeah.
Which one is it? Is it societal pressure? Is it family pressure? Is it internal pressure? Like, why is one more true than the other? Yeah. And that's the part where people get wrapped around. It's like, no, these are truths. It's like, no, that's your truth. And like, I don't feel that way around death. It's not my truth. I just don't. I always find some kind of meaning associated with that in some way or another, because I've accepted that, we are mortal beings, and that's just one of those things that you can't control. So that's where, like, let's use Daniel's affair for an example. That to me was like one of those, like, no, you can control. Like that's a human action that doesn't need to happen. You know what I mean?
You're
like
talking about the affair itself.
Yeah, like death happens.
Okay.
But like the affair is one of those things that nobody choose. Well, I say nobody chooses to die, but I mean, if we're generally speaking, like nobody's like, I think today I'm just going to die. Like that's just not, you know what I mean? That's just not a thing. It's not hardwired inside of us. But like something about betraying somebody, let's just take affair out of it, but just using betrayal in general, like that's a human action that doesn't necessarily have to take place. And then there's a bunch of stuff associated with it, selfishness or narcissism, whatever the thing is, right? Whatever they're trying to battle. So
yeah,
But that's the interesting thing about it is that, you know, sitting down and actually trying to figure out like what your truth is around specific things. So, you know, I know, you know, just if we're using the betrayal for an example, I engulf myself in reading and listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
Like almost like 8 hours a day because I was trying to attach because I didn't have a truth around that situation because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'd never
Nobody
experienced
talks
it
about it.
Yeah, and I'd never really experienced it anymore. So you're trying to get you're trying to hear a perspective and a story that resonates with you to make you not feel alone. And something that me and Brandon Leith talked about on last time is like there's just something about hearing a story or reading about it or, you know, and then a lot of people go even steps farther to say, you know, these are some things that you can focus on to help you deal or process or whatever the case may be. But I think that was, you know, it's another one why that's one of my big three is like you have to be a student forever because you know, whether you're learning how to play a musical instrument or something, you're at least exercising and being mindful and present in something, and that's teaching you something for something later. And then to just have that knowledge base of stories of, oh, I remember reading a book of so-and-so that had this exact same feeling, and this is a human condition that's normal. And there's just something about not feeling alone, even though you don't even know this person.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, I'm not the only person in human history that this is actually happening to.
Sense of community, yeah.
Yeah, in a weird way.
You guys did go through that whole recovery process, or you specifically went through it very clinically, like very...
A little, yeah. Well, and that was, you know, obviously we listened to a ton of podcasts where it's like, step one. And we're like, oh, yeah, we're doing that right now. Step two, don't get into this space. Oh, yeah, we do that a lot. You know, like there was these like the triggers and how you fight and when to have conversations and how to put them together and setting time limits on them and some of the things. There were a lot of them that we were like, okay, that obviously just doesn't work for me. But the concept and the idea was like, no, we have to sit down and talk about what this is. And that's tough, especially for Danielle, because she's like, I don't want to talk about this shit anymore. Like it happened, just do it. But when you look at the other person, it's like, no, it's not that you owe me anything or I have the right to know this. It's just like, no, I literally need this to move forward. Like it just is what it is, and I don't know how to get rid of it unless we satisfy that curiosity. And a lot of the times, it's like you hear it and you're like, okay, that didn't satisfy anything. I was just getting wrapped around the stupidest construct or whatever.
Do you feel like you wanted to feel all the pain at once?
Yeah, for me, I did. Yeah,
I get like that.
Well, and that's like where when I start talking about energy, it's like if there's a lot of unknown pieces around it, I don't know where to put the energy into. And I've got to be able to sit down and make that like
Can't fix it
that conscious decision to like, where am I putting energy in this right now to continue to find growth? And so without all the factors and the information, so, you know, for some people that may be listening to this, you could be holding on to certain details and aspects and other pieces around anything, whether it be a fight or some lingering thing in your relationship with your parents or whatever, that, you know, they're making decisions based on the information that's presented to them. And if they don't have all the information, it's just only going to be frustrating to both parties.
Yeah.
So it may be one of those things to explore that, like, if you really want to see where their genuine energy is going to be put in, then maybe you need to provide all the information around a specific thing. And I don't know what that is, you know? So like when Dale, you know, when the affair came out, I was like, it was 4 years long. So I was like, all right, let's dig the trenches and let's hear the timeline of everything that happened, you know? And I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know the actions and I wanted to know the emotions involved, and I wanted to know the timelines of every year. And then imagine,
and the communication.
Yeah. And she's 8 years removed from that. So she's trying to figure out, not 8 years, but 8 years from when it started. Trying to figure out, she had already buried all that stuff and already kind of moved on. And she's now in her own head trying to figure out, like, I don't even know what I was feeling at that anymore because I had processed it and moved on. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that sometimes if someone betrayed you, whatever it is, that if enough time goes by, they may have processed it and moved on and been okay in their own head, and you may not have. So that's the danger around, you know, letting things fester, because, you know, one just may be brewing on it and the other one may be processing and finding peace around it. And it's like, if you weren't honest around what you actually needed from that, you know, energy is just everywhere at that point, and it's not being pinpointed into whatever the specific thing is because you don't have all the information. Because either one, you never asked, or the other partner is just being like, no, I'm not telling you, I don't care, or they're shut off, and sometimes you can't control that. So,
but there's different needs on both sides of the spectrum on that. I know,
yeah,
like we've talked about Danielle and my Dave. They don't need all the details of everything. They just want like the big picture.
That's what happened.
Let's talk about it. Let's move on.
Cool. Yeah.
You and I like to dig into the details and know everything and feel all the emotions before we fix everything.
It's one of those things where you're like, I need to know exactly what I'm forgiving. Because to me, it's bigger than, it's like, I almost get it down to like, no, I need to now forgive every instance that you decided to betray me. Because it wasn't just one time, it was 10 times, So it's like, I have to forgive 10 different actions over 10 different years and all the emotions as they grew and moved into. That's just how my brain works.
Yeah.
And until we sat down and had that conversation of like, why do you need to know all these things? I'm like, I just have to know exactly what I'm forgiving. She's like, you're forgiving an affair that lasted 4 years. I'm like, no, I'm forgiving 10 affairs that happened 10 different times over 4 years. So, and that's a weird space to be in. So, because in her head, she's like, oh, no, I let that shit go 2 years ago. And I'm like, well, let's wake those things back up and have this conversation. So, but that's where I think I really started figuring out where I'm actually putting energy now and the things that actually are contributing positively and taking away. And that's where the 3 areas of energy management, if you want to call it that. I don't even know if we have a term for this thing, and I'm sure there's some book somewhere that.
Emotional intelligence is about the closest you can get to it.
Yeah, and that's a new topic that's being. There's not even a lot of research around it. I mean, they understand that it is a thing. They don't know how to measure it. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that have some
lots
surveys.
Of tests,
There's a bunch of surveys you can do where this personality is for this. But if you take, I think I've taken 3 or 4 of them throughout my military career, where some of them are geared towards leadership, some are geared towards emotional intelligence, some are geared towards resilience and personality and characteristics. And then I did some in college where, this is your best way of learning, and these are the things. And so you have like but then when you lay them all together, there's a lot of overlap, but there's also a lot of contradicting things. Then you're just kind of stuck with. And I think emotional intelligence is one of those things that changes depending on the situation.
Yeah.
So I think high emotional intelligence is just your ability to move and flow depending on what you're in. And I think low emotional intelligence is just like you're so rock steady in your shit that like something may be happening around you and you're like, nope, no way, not dealing with it. Nope. So
when we started doing emotional intelligence and what I do for work, they test you for emotional intelligence and put you through classes and everything. And I thought that I would score really high on emotional intelligence because I consider myself an empath because I feel people's emotions. I am not high on that scale because although I feel everything, I don't know how to manage it. So I'm higher than people that are at the rock bottom, but I don't think I'm like at the top of the scale by any means.
But it's so weird too that like, if I'm just like objectively sitting back, that like, if you feel like your emotional intelligence is high and now one test is making you second guess your whole entire personality. I think it's definitely a tool to look at where you're like, okay, I can find some improvement in some areas where I thought that I was really strong in. But to say that like, according to this thing, I thought I was a 9 out of 10 and I'm a 3, but I'm not rock bottom or whatever the measurement.
Not rock bottom now.
Yeah, whatever the measurement scale is, because I think that's one of those ones that's really hard to measure, because 90 days, a couple of books, a couple of traumatic experiences, a couple of growth experiences, and then you may be the most emotionally intelligent person on the planet.
It's true.
It was one of the things that me and Brandon got into is like how he's been given the gift of mortality. It's like there's not a lot of people that like, die of a heart attack and then, next thing you know, you're like given a new lease on life, and for him, he'd had a stroke, and they were just like, man, we don't know what's going on. We don't, so you're like, for 4 days, you're kind of in this world of like, shit, man, life is super finite and this can be snatched from me in a moment. So I'd imagine his emotional intelligence went from whatever it was and probably doubled,
Yeah.
just right there because he's become more mindful about where shit's actually going and where it's coming from. So
Yeah, I think I won't go off on a tangent, but
do it.
no, I was thinking about my situation, and like when I was 28, everything, I started getting really unhealthy and like no energy. Things were just not going well. And when we went to the doctor about it, I wasn't producing any hormones, and I found out that I had a pituitary tumor. And it wasn't the end of the world. And like the worst case scenario, I would have had a surgery and the tumor would have been removed, and
Yeah.
things would have moved on. But I think just the like immediate response of, oh wait, this is serious and we have to do something about it, shifted Dave and I into family planning mode. It like changed our whole lives.
Yeah.
So
Now, do you think that because there's also two avenues that can lead down. We always talk about it as like it can cripple you to an extent, or you can be like, now everything's head on and everything's happening for you and you're trying to find. Do you feel that you maybe look at that in certain situations and scenarios and you may be feeling ashamed that you've been given this gift of, things could actually change and I'm not actually taking advantage of it to its fullest?
I feel that a lot.
Really?
It's kind of true. I mean, you look at your life and you get so caught up in the details of your life, and if you're not living every moment to the highest extent possible, there's a tendency for people like me to feel guilt about that. Like,
yeah, but and that's one of the things that I mean, we talk about this a lot. I'm like, dude, if you're mindful and you're present, which is a tough thing, and I totally get that. It's a super hard thing to kind of be in, but if you're like, if you're living life like I totally could have done that moment better, it's like, no, you did the best you could based on the information that was given to you right in that moment. And sometimes it's by measurement bad and it's good, even if it is bad to whatever comparison, because there is no comparison, on whatever measurement scale that doesn't exist, it's still the best that you could have done
at that moment. Yeah.
At that moment. So it's just one of those things where that's why I'm so big about embracing your decisions, because you have to make decisions in life. Like, it just is what it is. 37,000 a day or whatever the damn number is. And it's like, dude, you just there's not a lot of time to be dwelling and trying to figure out and process every little thing that comes across. And if you are trying to do that, you're just going to see this compilation of things that are just like almost happening real time of like, oh shit, I didn't have enough time for that, and now I'm faced with this one, and now this one's on the back burner. I didn't have it, and now that one's getting pushed on the back burner, and nothing was resolved because you're constantly pushing it on the back burner because you're afraid to make decisions based on, is it the right decision? Is it a bad decision? I could have done better with that. How can I do better with that? Instead of sometimes just living, it just prevents you from. Now, don't get me wrong, there are things that are like, if you get faced with a tough decision, like you obviously have to put some other shit on hold and put some thought into it. And this will, I guess, lead us into our first area of energy in the way that I break it down. So I have 3 areas that I try to keep energy in. So first, I think that there's, we talked about the resiliency factor, but I think that there is a specific amount of energy that we're giving throughout the day. The thing about energy, though, that I believe, I think if you give energy in certain areas, I think some things give energy back
to you.
So you're given a specific amount, but you can recharge. So I think if we call ourselves a battery, I think we drain our battery to an extent with every little decision we make, and then something can happen to us to either drain that battery based on how we react to it, on our feelings, or if it was something really big and pleasurable and connected or whatever. And so those are the areas that things that I know are going to drain my battery, like deplete my battery. I kind of let those things just kind of fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
Unless they're like decisions I have to make that directly affect the relationships that I'm committed in. So I think, for me, we had that podcast on purpose where we think, life is always connected to relationships in one way or another. It's like whether your relationship with your coworkers is really good, your relationship with your partner is really good, your kids, regardless if my purpose is to deliver fitness so they can be as healthy as possible, it still revolves around the relationship with the individual that I'm trying to deliver it to. So my purpose is to build the strongest relationships that I possibly can, regardless of the task in which I'm implementing it to. So if I sit down and define all those things, like where's my work, my social, and my family relationships, you know, the highest amount of energy are the ones that directly affect all of those things, because they affect you and they affect somebody else, whether it be emotionally or physically or financially or whatever the case may be. So those are the ones where I sit down and I really try to weigh out, like, okay, what are the emotions that I'm feeling around this right now? What are the emotions that the other party could be feeling around this? How is this going to affect them, either financially or emotionally or physically, those types of things. And you start like now taking in all the factors. And this is where energy kind of gets like, it can get zapped super quick. If you let it, and this is where we talk about this all the time, you're like, well, how do you get through that so quick? Because you know me, I don't spend a lot of time on almost anything. Even if I had to make a decision that was, going to affect, the financial situation of my home, I still don't. It's not like I dwell on it for months.
Yeah, you triage and commit.
I spend a couple hours on it,
brutal.
and then I'm out. And I think that kind of goes back to we have the military decision making process thing that we do. That's part of our planning and stuff. And I mean, I started looking at that and was like, well, look, people's lives legitimately depend on this process. How can this not just be rationally applied to things that people's lives don't necessarily, like, no one's going to lose their life over this per se. Yeah, exactly. So I come up with 3 different, courses of action. And we call them COAs.
Yeah.
Which is just 3 courses of action, and then whatever one has the most upside. Because trying to forecast all the consequences and the chain reaction of you making a decision will cost you way too much time and way too much energy.
That's true.
And most of the time, based on my experience, 90% of the stuff that you thought was going to happen doesn't happen.
That's true.
And the 10% of the things that do, they're either super catastrophic or they're just kind of like, eh. And no matter what, you're going to have to face those. And so I know you're always trying to come up with an idea that mitigates the catastrophic things, but they're unavoidable. They're going to happen. Like, it's just a part of life. Obviously you got to put some thought into them, but I've just found that the more I fire off decisions, coming up with 3 ideas and firing off those decisions, it doesn't take as much energy, so it leaves me reserves to kind of deal with all the other different areas going on in my life that I want to put energy into, and so these big decisions come along. It's like, sit down, grab all parties involved, have the quick conversation on where everybody's feeling right now, because you do have to find that balance of, emotions and rational thinking.
Yeah.
And we're all driven by emotions, whether we want to, think we are or not. Even the people that are like, I'm so rational and so analytical, it's like, yeah, I mean, you're because you feel that way. There's still, you can't just make almost every decision, because a lot of times there's no, it's not math. You can't 2 + 2 = 4. Like, that's just not the way life works. It's a crazy equation. And
so walk me through one of these decisions.
Will it set up a scenario or an example where we would?
I mean, like moving this last time.
Yeah. So literally we sat down and we were like, what does a home provide for us? One, it's a roof over our head and a place to sleep. That's it. And a place for us to gather and share time as a family. So if you really think about that, any house meets that need.
Yeah.
Apartment, house, condo, whatever. So now when you start talking about the different sizes and how big it's going to be and what neighborhood are we going to live, that's ego. That's all ego, and that's all the arrogance of yourself thinking that you're better than X, Y, and Z. And that's just, it is what it is. So there's other things that I have legit. I need an art studio. So that's when you start breaking down, like, I need an art studio, I need an office. For us, our son goes to college next year, so we wanted to have an apartment for him, which is how we ended up in the house we're at. We're like, okay, here's the criteria. Then it's just reach out to a realtor that we know, and we didn't give a shit about the house.
Yeah?
No, we were just like, we put in an application on almost every house we looked at for the most part. That was because the other thing, we wanted to be close to the gym.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to ride my bike to the gym. So I needed to be within 10 miles ish. And so this one ended up being like, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles from the gym or something.
Yeah.
And it hit all the other criteria. So other than that, we didn't care. I didn't care what color it was. I didn't care what it looked like. I didn't care what the color of the walls were. It just,
Yeah.
she just showed us that here's our budget and just showed us. And the flip side of that is like, so if I'm going on hindsight, but at the time I wasn't even considering it because I didn't give a shit. It was just like, just show me these houses and let's just fire the decision and just whatever happens. So every time we looked at a house and we're like, yep, meets our needs, we would just apply for an application and be like, the house is off the market already. We're like, yeah. And that happened 15 times. That's why it took us.
Oh my
but
goodness.
It only, by the time we decided to move and come here, it was 2 weeks and we signed an application on a house. Like it wasn't like, even though we had 6 months to do it if we really wanted to. It was like we just didn't want that monkey on our back anymore. Like, oh, because then you're waking up every day and you're like, we're looking for a house.
Yeah.
Looking for a house. And it's like
Stressful.
that right there is energy just thinking about it. Like, we're looking for a house again. For us, it was like, no, we don't want to look for a house anymore. Like, we know what it is. Let's just do it. So that one doesn't even need 3 courses of actions. It's just like,
just requirements.
Here's the requirements and bang, let's do it. So I know a lot of people, it's like, and where this comes from is just the pressures of whatever you create. I have to have this house, it's got to be this big. I need, all my kids need their own bedroom and, all this, like, whatever is just created by you. So if you want to spend energy there and then sit back at the end of the day and wonder why you're so overwhelmed and filled with anxiety, then like, either you just accept the fact that you like to dwell over things that don't mean anything, that you think mean things from wherever. Like, but what's creating that meaning? Is it good, happy, peaceful emotions? No.
Yeah.
The majority of the time, no. So then the question is like, why do I have to have black granite countertops instead of the brown ones that were in the house that was perfect except for the brown granite countertops? It's like,
that's all aesthetic.
Yeah, me and Danielle are just like, I don't care if it's brown, blue, purple, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
Does it hold food?
Yep.
Like,
You'll fix it.
So that's one of those things where, and there's so many options anyways. It's not like, if you look at enough
as we say
houses,
that, we're sitting in a really nice house that you live in.
No, it's a nice house, but it just happened to,
Just happened
that
to
was by
fall into the
chance.
requirements.
Yeah, that wasn't like I spent 6 months trying to find the perfect house.
Yeah.
It was just literally dumb by chance. So it was just one of those things where, one, it didn't take a lot of energy because we didn't put energy into it. And it just, we went out 3 or 4 times with our realtor and put applications in every day we went out. And then
Found a place.
Yeah, by the end of I want to say we actually only really spent like 5 days on it, the more I think about it.
It was fast.
It was super fast, yeah, because we don't, and most people, if you really think about like moving, because for us then there's that like, well, it's our home and it's where we're going to spend our time. It's like, no, my home is where those 3 other motherfuckers are sitting.
Yeah.
I don't care where it's at. It could be in a hotel room. It could be at, like, we make a home regardless of where we're at because the relationship is the definition of the home for us, not some physical structure. But there's always that, like, visually it's got to invoke a certain emotion, and there's feelings about organization, and you can get frustrated about, I don't have a place to put my tools, and I don't have a, so you're like, well, I needed a 3-car garage because I have so much shit, I can see how those can create a structure and organization in your life that's a physical thing. But again, those are where you just sit down and figure out what your needs and requirements are as a human being, and not what you think they are based on, the world is telling you it should be.
That's a good point.
By this time we should have a 2,500 square foot house, and in this specific neighborhood where the medium income is this, and we should be going to these type of school districts, and it's like, I mean, I don't know if the school district's okay, then I'm not gonna lose. Daniel used to ask me, like, what do you this one they get like point whatever better rating on, and I'm like
A plus grade.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't put them in a C. Like, I don't give a fuck. I literally don't give a fuck.
Really?
No, because for me, the school system's broke.
Well, yeah.
Super fucking broke. So it's like, so people are like, yeah, well, if it's broke, don't you want to like be in the less broke system as possible? It's like, well, for me, I think the lessons that prepares them for life, like there's all those, the system is what it is. Like you got to have a high school diploma.
Yeah.
So you can move on and go pick up a trade or a profession or go to college, whatever you're going to do. Like you got to have a high school diploma. Like it's the standard of modern day life. So we have to accept that and we have to embrace it for what it is. Do I think the process to get to the high school diploma is good? No. I think it's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
My kid's a perfect example. She's like me. I remember sitting in class, just like getting through homework as fast as possible, as efficient as possible, not to absorb it, but to just get the passing grade. Like if, I didn't give a fuck if it was an A, B, or a C, as long as it was a C or above so I could pass. I didn't really care. Now that bit me in the ass because I failed a bunch of classes and I ended up I had to take 9 classes my senior year when everybody else was getting out at noon. So I paid for it and I learned a valuable lesson there because it was like, look, you can fuck off and do the bare minimum and in the long game, you'll pay for it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I didn't learn that lesson until I was 17 years old and a senior in high school. So then I realized that like, no, if you actually sit down, you can still be efficient, you can still be fast, but you have to put your best effort into it because in the long game, it's going to catch you.
Yeah.
Even though I was getting by in the moment, the long game, it bit me. And so that was one of those ones where, and what a weird lesson to take from a high school kid at 17 years old to realize like, fuck man, my inability to do my best because I was better than that.
Yeah.
I just didn't care. I was smoking a lot of weed and drinking a lot of alcohol. So at the time it seemed like the right answer. But in the moment I was like,
stuff to do.
Let's just get by,
Yeah.
And that bit me in the ass. And so that just, again, that goes back to like, do you want to just get by in parenting? Do you want to just get by in your relationship with your wife or your husband? Do you want to just get by in all these different aspects? I promise you 10 years later, you're going to wake up and it's going to fucking bite you in the ass. So getting by for me is one of those things where, again, back to energy management, we have to stick it in places we know is going to have the fullest return. So that first one, again, is just like what directly affects my committed relationships where they sit right now.
Yeah.
And this is so people are like, well, so now society, my family, like I'm not in committed relationships with them.
Yeah.
Like we don't, my aunts, I love my aunts to death, but like we don't rely on each other to figure out finances or to, make decisions based on what the house needs to look like that. I'm not in that relationship. I'm just not.
Yeah.
But they're my family, so I have a social thing.
Agreement, yeah.
So almost every decision that I'm going to make that has any kind of consequence isn't going to directly affect them. So their pressures mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
So my whole family, they're all Mormon. They're all super religious, which it works for them. And they're fantastic, unbelievable people. And that just is great.
Yeah.
But like, am I going to let that, like, because I grew up in that, force me to stay Mormon? It did.
For a long time.
For almost 15 years, yeah. And it just wasn't it wasn't our essence. It wasn't what we believed in. And that created a lot of resentment and so I let my decisions being made be influenced by things that we weren't in direct relationships with. So now I wasted energy. I put thought process and energy in areas which took it from other areas that needed it.
Yeah.
The communication and the relationship with my wife and my kids and I could have been better at my job or whatever the could-haves or would-haves or whatever the fucks. But,
yeah.
So in hindsight, looking back at that, it's like, no, which ones if I make a decision right now, does it legitimately directly affect, not somebody's feelings because they have a different belief than I do.
Yeah. And their feelings are going to get hurt.
And their feelings are going to get hurt. Like if your feelings get hurt because I go get a sleeve tattoo.
Yeah.
That doesn't directly affect you.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like, it's mine. It was for me, but it doesn't directly affect you. But how many people are like, I joke about this all the time, that probably half the tattoos I do, they're like, oh my God, my mom's going to kill me. There's like a 40-year-old chick sitting on my table and I'm like giving her first tattoo. And my mom's going to kill me. I'm like, that feeling right there is energy that is wasted.
Yeah.
Wasted, concerned about the feelings of what your mom is, her reaction and how she's going to feel about something that is a personal decision.
Yeah.
Is bizarre to me.
You don't feel like you, Okay, so what do you do about all those inputs? Because all day long, I mean, I know I have a text feed at least once a day that's just telling me the bad things happening around people. So what do you do with those emotions?
I'm aware of them.
I'm aware too, but I feel like to a certain extent
No, so right there you're giving it energy.
yeah.
Even just right now, I can feel you thinking about something that came in this morning.
Yeah.
And you're like, for me, if my aunt texted me and was like, oh my gosh, my son got, kicked out of school and I'd be like,
And then you just let it go.
yeah, that's it. It's I'm sorry for you. And that's it, because I'm not responsible for it.
Yeah.
I'm not responsible to solve that problem.
I feel like that's a skill though. Like I know I'm not going to solve a problem, but I still have to hear about it and still have to feel the feelings associated with it.
No, you don't. You just have to hear about it.
You just have to hear about it.
And you have to be aware about it, and you have to understand and show compassion. That's it. We talked about that the other day, compassion and tolerance.
Yes. How do you feel the compassion though? And I guess like my problem is a long time ago I learned that I can't feel everything, and so I build a wall. And I can feel myself when I enter that relationship where I know it's going to be negative and I'm going to have to be covered by an onslaught.
So why is that
negativity.
relationship in your life? That's what I ask myself. If I have to go into a situation where I'm putting on all defenses and shit,
Yeah.
I am out. And that side right there is 99% of the human population. And I totally get it. I understand it. I have a ton of compassion for it, because I don't want to see people hurt. I want people to get better. I want them to feel better. I want them to be awake. I want them to be conscious. But we can't accomplish that by everybody just being soul drained by each other because you're in bad relationships.
Yeah.
It's just not good for human society. If we just step back and look at it from 50,000 feet, it's not good for ourselves. It's not good for society. We're creating this world of all of us sitting in this box together, none of us really even wanting to be in it.
Yeah.
And just this fucking guy, I got to go talk to him. And you're doing this, I got to go to Thanksgiving with my family, and this shit is going to be so fucking hard.
Yep.
Dude, if that's happening and you value those relationships, you need to sit down and have a family discussion with the heads of the table and just be like, hey, man, these dinners every year fucking suck, and here's why. To me,
Yeah.
I'm not saying use those exact words, but in a nutshell, and everyone being like, yeah, man, dude, we do this every year. And you just have to start having the conversation, or you just have to know that every year around Thanksgiving or on the weekends or whenever you're going to see your family, that you're going to have to reserve energy from Monday through Friday somewhere so you could go in and deal with that energy and then recoup on Sunday. And if that's the rhythm that you want to set up as your life, you just need to embrace it for what it is. But if you're sitting down and wanting to have this idea of I want to be my best self and be my most potential and be at peace as much as I possibly can, then you got to start sitting down honestly and be like, where is good energy going out and I'm getting it back in? And it's terrifying in the front, but it's the most rewarding thing in the long game, because you're only now going into situations where you're excited to be there.
Yeah.
You're always excited to be a part of everything that you're associated with, and you create that. Nobody else creates that.
Yeah. I think my problem is I know the intent behind the delivery of the message isn't bad. And I know that I have a very low capacity for dealing with emotions. So I feel like at least partially the fault is on me, that I just can't manage correctly.
Yeah.
So I keep shirking off that responsibility of taking forward action on that. But
yeah, but it's also one of those things where you're and I'm not saying you can't keep those relationships around you, because if you have a relationship where somebody's just woe is me 50% of the time, I don't even, whatever, we'll just make up a number. But the other 50% of the time, they add so much to your life, and they're bringing in so much joy, and there's a lot of peace. So it's not an even keel one. It just means the upside of it is better than the downside.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It just means that the woe is me shit, it's
it's just the price of doing business.
But you don't lose energy there. You're just aware of you're just the person that's listening, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you don't care. Like, people can tell you bad shit all the time, and you're like, yeah, compassion. But for you to now contribute sadness and trauma and hurt to it, and it's not even yours,
Yep.
is what are you going to get in return there? Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. It's not going to help them. Because what it's going to do, it's going to, now don't get me wrong, there are some things where like deaths, right?
Yeah.
Your best friend loses their fucking mom, and maybe you never met their mom. You're going to have to
show compassion. Show empathy.
Yeah, because you know the upside of that relationship when they get through that journey is what you're a part of it for.
Yeah.
But the other ones where you have use kids for example. My kid yelled at me last night, and they're not talking to me anymore. And then they're like, their whole world is over because they feel like the shittiest parent on the planet. And then you're like, oh my God. You're just giving them justification and a reason to live in that space longer.
That's true.
Because now they don't feel alone in feeling like shit. And they don't feel alone for feeling hurt and sadness around something that they can manipulate and turn around in the other direction. Okay, what was the good of the conversation that I just had with my son last night where he just called me the worst mom on the planet?
Can you find good in that?
Are you going to... There's always something there.
There's always something.
There's always something there. So that's the thing. Are you just going to sit back and be like, I'm the fucking worst mom on the planet because some hormonal fucking 13-year-old boy told me I was the worst mom on the planet? Man, dude, if your kids have that much control over you, dude, you have a lot of shit to work on.
Yeah.
Because my kids may get upset and they may cry about some shit, and I don't give a fuck. In the sense, now I care. I have compassion for them. I want to help them grow emotionally around whatever specific thing that they're feeling right there. Mm-hmm. But for me to own it that I did that, no, I'm responsible to shape them and provide logistics for them to get from point A to point B, and then for them to be adults and do their thing. And I am giving them everything they need, without a doubt in my mind. And am I going to fuck up a lot of situations? For sure. But I'm not gonna own that 100%. I'm not gonna walk around feeling that so and so's dad takes him to every football practice and stays up till fucking midnight playing catch and I'm not that dad. I don't give a fuck about your sports. I don't care. I think it's fucking stupid. That's just me, and I'm honest about it. But I'm not comparing to the dad that is doing that. If that's your definition of a great dad, then you're fucking crushing it. My definition of a great dad is sitting right here in this chair, and I'm fucking crushing it, man. What else do you want me to do with that? Nothing. I'm not in comparison in some race with some other dad. I'm just not.
So take the other dad out of it, though. Mm-hmm. You don't invest any energy in what their reflection of you when they're adults
into my kids?
Be.
No.
Yeah.
Fuck them. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, for sure, because that's where the energy of the relationships is so important. Because if it's good going out and good coming in and good coming out and good coming in, it's the same for them. Okay. So if every once in a while you have that blip on the radar where it's bad going out and bad coming in, they're going to revert back to the statistical data that is the habitual consistency that they know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The movie nights and us sitting down at the dinner table fucking laughing and shooting the shit and joking and...
I hope so. I mean, I think your kids are there. They're almost adults, so they're
Dude,
there.
You do way more good for your kid than you do in the bad, and that's something that you've got to start embracing and understanding that Bethany Schwenke is crushing Bethany Schwenke. That's it. Now if you were fucking self-pity this and that and 100% of the time, I might be you would probably know, because we wouldn't be having this podcast right now, because I'd fucking remove you, because that's bad energy going out, bad energy going out, and bad energy coming in. You'll start looking at some of the people that you may emulate and want to look up to and see who they're surrounded with and be like, oh man, these people are just laughing and joking all the time, and it's just good energy, and there's not a lot of Now, do I think there's challenging situations? Like me and you, we talk politics all the time, and it's probably not politics. The emotions and the ideas around politics all the time, which is super funny because I don't believe in any of the points that I make for the most part.
And you drive me crazy.
And it drives you fucking insane. And the funny thing is you know that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
what about these arguments that the other side is making? There's always partial validity and truth to every part of the situation, which takes us back to the energy going out in the first thing. Now, if I was in politics and I was a politician and I actually had to like the ability to put some energy into making certain decisions to make policy changes and some other shit. Yeah, dude. Number one, right?
Yeah.
Direct impacts to the relationships that I'm involved in. There would be high energy going in. But since I'm so far removed in my place in society and my purpose and my relationships that I'm committed to right now, politics falls on number 3 for me.
Yeah.
Which is aware, but no energy.
Yeah.
None. I'm not willing to go to Washington, D.C. and sit in front of the White House and picket.
Yep.
Because I think Donald Trump makes really shitty comments to women on women reporters. Because the shit that he did last week was, I heard it and was like, why would you say that?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And I get where a lot of people are getting super wrapped around that because it's losing all the good shit he's doing. Don't get me wrong, he's doing a bunch of bad shit, but he's also doing a bunch of good shit. Nobody fucks up 100% of the time. Nobody. Not even that guy. Nobody. But to have awareness around it to where I'm like, oh, that was fucked up. I'm not like, oh, that chick and the thing and social media post and like comment on somebody that shared it. Yeah. I'm like, that was kind of fucked up. And it's gone.
Loss of energy.
Gone. Yeah. Zero
so,
energy.
The other thing that we've talked about is you see total honesty as energy saving.
Yes.
Because you can just dismiss the shit that you don't care about, do it very honestly, and move on and save time.
Well, I think that that's the foundation to everything.
Yeah.
The moment you stop telling lies to yourself and you create that brutal honesty that we talk about, that's where you start creating efficiency in all aspects of your life.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to create efficiency of our time because it's finite and our energy because it's finite. And so until you start creating efficiency, you can't live. You're just figuring out constantly.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine the exhaustion of day after day, week after week, month after month, where you're figuring out all the time.
That's true. But what do you feel like what's the thing that keeps you learning and keeps you being a student when you feel like you've made these decisions already? Like if you're at a place where you're just happy and content.
So no decision is final.
Yeah. There's always room for growth.
Nothing's gospel.
I can see that.
Except for 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah.
It's pretty much gospel.
Math.
Like
the ultimate religion.
Yeah, like we can't we can't argue with.
Yep.
But it's like one of those things where let's use nutrition, for instance. If we just kind of go on a tangent of nutrition is one of those things where as they learn more about the human body and they create more tests on how to test certain things in the human body and they find more chemicals or hormones or enzymes in the body, nutrition changes based on science. But what we know to be true is X. Well, how do we know that? Well, it's anecdotal for all of us. It's like the people that have sort of experimented on like, can I eat beans and be okay? Can I have bread and be okay? Can I drink milk and be okay? I probably shouldn't be eating Lucky Charms for breakfast every day because I realize that makes me feel like shit. Like there's some foundations and some truths, and outside of all this different research of like whether it's carnivore or keto or vegan or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
None of it's gospel.
Yeah. You heard Rhonda Patrick the other day talk about the nocebo and placebo effect and how you can convince yourself that you have allergies that you don't have.
Yeah.
That was super interesting to me.
Yeah, it's like it's the same thing with like so I was watching our new favorite show. It just came back out on Netflix called Meat Eater.
Oh.
So this guy's a hunter, but he hunts to eat.
Okay.
And that's it. the whole premise of the show is live to hunt and hunt to live.
Okay.
But the dude like goes out and like he's like, if I go out on a hunt and I'm not in a meat crisis, he says it all the time. He's like, I'm not in a meat crisis right now, so if I don't come across like the absolute pinnacle of the deer, he's like, there was 100 deer I could have shot on this hunting trip to just shoot a deer. He's like, but I didn't because I wasn't in a meat crisis. At that point, I'm chasing a trophy per se.
Yeah.
But a trophy in the sense that like I want to live an experience of being connected to an animal that spent more time on this earth, and if I come across that animal, then great. So it's like this weird spiritual thing for him. But what we were I just lost my whole train of thought right there because I went on a tangent.
Nutrition and
yeah. Yeah, but you were talking about Rhonda Patrick with the
nocebo and placebo effect. About how you can convince yourself that you're allergic to things.
Oh, yeah. So sorry. So he went to somewhere in South America, and he has a rule. He's like, I don't eat primates.
Oh,
it's just one of the meats that I won't. It's too close to home. It's, whatever. Yeah. But that was the whole thing, is that he had created in his own head that like this is going to be really gross. It's going to take because it's too close to human.
Yeah.
And he kind of in one of the episodes he pushed past his own belief in his own bear, and he ends up eating this little howler monkey that they ended up shooting. Because for them, hunting is like they're not out to hunt a pig or hunt a deer or hunt. He's like, no, they're hunting meat, and that's it.
It doesn't matter what
because they just got to get food on the table.
Yeah.
And they ended up, cutting this monkey in half, and essentially, once he started looking at the whole process, he's like, oh man, it's like they treat it like a pig. They smoke it just like a pig. They broke it in half just like a pig. Left the skin on it and cooked it all the same. Da da da. He's like, so once I started seeing that, like, this is just a nutrition source for them and kind of breaking down, he kind of lost that, like, that essentially that placebo that he was creating in his head. Like, this is going to be disgusting. I can't do this. And it's like, because it's a primate, it's attached to something emotional outside of whatever. But
the mind is so malleable. It's kind of crazy.
It's a weird thing. But so, yeah, that's where, for me, I don't think anything's gospel. And this is where I kind of have a weird thing with politics too, where like people sharing, some senator talking about immigration from 10 years ago. I'm like, they can't change their fucking mind.
They can't.
Like they can't change their views on shit. Like what, how have we gotten into a human race to where we can, your belief is it forever.
I think people have to believe in a growth mentality, though, and if you're seeing that person make the same statement over the decade, then that's one thing.
I think that's part of the dangerous shit that we're in right now, is that our society is becoming so fixed on whatever you placed yourself in.
Yeah.
Republican, Democrat, vegan, meat eater, fitness, lazy slob. Like, literally, that's a thing. Like, I saw an article the other day where the plus size model is like pushing this like whole body shaming thing. We're supposed to love ourselves for how it is and da 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 da. And she's like, I have diabetes and I don't have any issues. I'm totally happy. And she went blind from diabetes. This is the advocate for this whole quit body shaming thing. But it's like, at what point are we like, man, I don't know if we should be an advocate for destroying our bodies. And when is it a personal choice? Like, this girl claims that she's totally happy, and now her statement, which it was on the website that it was on, was like they were like praising her for it. She's like, well, now this is such a beautiful thing because now I can't see my haters.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, that's the silver lining you found? You're fucking blind and now you can't see the nasty comments on Instagram anymore?
The story is sad to me. It sounds like someone took advantage of it.
But that's the thing where like it became so fixed on this idea of like, I want women or overweight people to be so empowered for who they are and how they're built that I'm going to take it so far past the extreme. And it's like, the message got lost into this like weird social justice vengeance thing where it's like, I'm going to fucking show you I'm beautiful at 300 pounds. It's like, yeah, you're also fucking dead. You're also dead at 300 pounds eventually. You know?
Do you feel like, that's such a hard subject?
It's a hard subject, right? Yeah.
Because on one hand,
but I'm aware of it. I'm not putting energy into it.
I know. I'm putting a little bit of energy into it. I recognize the reality of people that are that large and that obese, knowing that there's not really that much of a recourse from it. I mean, they can get surgery, right?
Well,
But even
so
the
I have
people,
I have family members that have gotten surgery,
yeah,
and
gastric bypass.
their life is fucking miserable, man.
Why?
Physically, because you start when you do that. There's a lot of things that happen to your body physiologically, and don't quote me on this. I'm not an expert. This is just from conversations.
Well, you've got to learn how to eat correctly after the bypass.
But all that changes. But there's your immune system is built and resides in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment you start shutting it off and manipulating what that is, it starts processing all nutrients different, not just. So hormones are out of control and out of whack, and went down that journey of plastic surgery and getting a boob job and fixing all her stuff, and just wanted to feel aesthetically good about herself, which I totally get.
Yeah.
And then now she's just like, man, I wish I would have never done any of it. She had to get her boobs removed because the
Rejected the implant.
Yeah, it was leaking and causing hormone, not leaking, but the material that it was made of, her body was absorbing it. It was having essentially allergic reaction that maybe most people that get breast implants don't. Was causing hormonal issues, and now like her nutrient absorption in her gut isn't the same as it used to, so she's not getting the right nutrients, and now she's supplementing with all kinds of other stuff. And it's a daily battle for her to just get up and have good energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Apart from that, though, you see obese people that legitimately cannot lose the weight and can't do anything about it. Can't sustain a smaller
but the flip side of that is like, what is the can't? Because then it's like, because this is something that I'm super passionate about. Like it's not about like fixing. It's not about, but when people get into a position of despair, that's where I want to like, we can help this. We can fix this. But I just, and it's in my experience, and I've seen it throughout my family and clients and coaching and SF dudes that are like this. Or there's like, I just can't figure out how to this and that. And then it's like, then you go in their house and the pantry's filled with, Cheetos and fucking cereal. And it's like,
that's part of the social problem though around it.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
A lifetime of.
Well, and I think they're creating the word can't because the perception of what is healthy. So they're like, but I'm eating reduced fat this, and I have whole grain cereal, and I have, I'm doing this, like I'm doing everything that is healthy, and I can't make it happen. It's like, okay, there's a difference between you can't and being misinformed on what the process actually looks like.
There's so much misinformation. Anyway, I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that like there's a mentality that says if I can't affect this, I might as well find some worth in it. And I kind of respect that mentality of finding something about yourself that you
but that's a lie.
You think so?
Yeah, like if the moment you start destroying your, and again, this is one of those things where this is like a hard non-negotiable for me, honor the body. The moment you decide to not honor your body and find some kind of silver lining in that, I'm fucking out.
Yeah.
I'm out. Dude, because you're telling a bullshit story to yourself to justify your behavior and actions that you actually don't want to change. If you don't want to change them, just say you don't want to change them.
Yeah.
I can't, and I did this, and like Joe Rogan went on a perfect rant the other day when Jordan Peterson's daughter was like, he just didn't have the energy to exercise. He's like, fucking bullshit.
Like Caleb Peterson.
Bullshit. He's like, get up, and that's the thing. We tell ourselves these lies of like, I don't have energy, and I can't get the right foods in the house, and like, the silver lining is that I'm at peace with drinking 3 bottles of wine every night. It's like, dude, no, you're not. You're fucking lying, or you wouldn't be making such a point about it. You wouldn't. That's the other thing too, is a lot of the stuff that we're constantly trying to sell to everybody is a lie we're telling ourselves the majority of the time, because you're trying to, well, I do this and that, and you're always bringing it up, and it's always the conversation. I'm totally fine, and da da da. It's like, dude, okay. Stop fucking talking about it if you're fine.
Yeah.
You're obviously not fine because you're looking for somebody to tell you no. You're trying to have a conversation for someone to be like, no, you're not, you fucking liar. Like, you're not. Like, stop. You're waiting for your best friend to step in, and all of us don't want to hurt each other's feelings, so we're like tiptoeing around. You're waiting for somebody to call fucking bullshit on you. It's a normal human reaction where you're like, I think I'm lying to myself, but I'm not quite sure. But everybody else is just kind of agreeing with me, so it's got to be the truth.
Yep.
Instead of just having honorable, honest friends that are like, no, fuckhead, stop doing that. That is not good for you. I know it's not good for you because look at the outcome.
Yeah.
Look at the outcome based on your actions. And they're like, oh, like those are the friends you need. Those are the fucking friends you need. If you don't have friends like that, fucking DM me on Instagram, Dave Hall OS, and come fucking hang out with me for a couple months, man. I will be a dick to you.
That's
in
true.
the sense that like I'm not gonna lie to you. If you equate that to being a dick, then I'll be a dick for you.
Yeah.
No problem. But I'm not gonna fill you with lies and bullshit and let you input energy into areas you know subconsciously aren't good for you.
It's true.
And we'll have those conversations. And I don't give a fuck.
You will. And it's exhausting.
It is not exhausting. It's freeing. It's exhausting initially, but then it becomes freeing.
That's true. It is true. But when it comes to energy management, though, like, how do you feel about people in different situations than you who have, like, grown up? I know you're going to tell me
Well, first off, I'll tell you what I
very unhealthy situation too.
I'll tell you what I feel right now is this coffee is delicious.
This coffee is delicious.
So we have
Yeah.
we're not sponsored by any drink companies, by the way. People just always ask me like little aspects about our lives, and so
Guava.
This has kind of turned into like a.
Thank you.
That's good. These guys are out of Portland, Oregon. And this was from our trip, Guava. And it's delicious. We order it online now and
It's really good.
We buy like 5 bags at a time. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you there about the.
Sorry.
I was just like sipping on this and like, man, this is some good coffee.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we have this conversation all the time in my house because my husband's a fitness coach, like you guys, and really into nutrition and really into taking care of his body. And then we go visit my family, and it's a totally different social structure and a totally different environment. And like last time, he just lost it, and just started going off about like, you're not in this. Just telling the truth, but it was very like in your face, and it's because he cares so much about people's health and people's actions, and he has so much energy. And since we're having the energy conversation, I feel like people have to know their own capacity, and then they have to know enough to make the judgment for the thing that really matters long term, and not being reactive and hitting the things that have the emotional payoff right then.
Yeah.
And
if you don't know what they are, how do you experience them? Well, you have to become mindful first.
Yeah. You have to
become mindful so you know the reciprocation of the good energy. Because if you're unconscious, you can be putting what you think is good energy into the world and you won't even notice it coming back.
So what gives you good energy?
The laughter of my kids.
Yep. That's a big one for me.
You know, any positive, it's really weird. Me and Danielle can be doing almost anything together now. And it's that good energy that we're spending is just bouncing back and forth constantly.
That's awesome.
And it's an amazing place to be in, and I wish that. And don't get me wrong, there's times where it's like this morning, perfect example. I'll tell you guys a fucking story. So I posted this morning about my exercise. I was like, fucking 2 hours behind, kind of aggravated. We get up at 5:30 this morning, and so everybody out there, this instant gratification generation time in our lives, where everything is instant. Danielle, we've been getting up every morning at 5:30, doing movement, 15, 20 minutes, and then we meditate for 10 minutes, and then we start our day at 6 a.m. Me, I read because I don't really have fuck all to do except for write and some other shit. But she's got to be out the door and I give her a ride to work every day. And we leave at 7. So I normally, coffee's brewed, I get in the bath, I soak for 30 minutes or something, I read. normally in there, or I'm listening to a podcast and Danielle's getting ready and we're just bullshitting in the morning. Like, I want to start my day off with the best energy as possible, which is Danielle to me. Like, how can I bounce good energy back and forth? Is getting them and moving with Danielle. And this morning, and I think it's because we had the late night, the one night, and she's a little bit sleep deprived because we watched the fight this weekend. And she's like, at 5:30, we're having this discussion, and I'm getting ready to get up, and I'm like, I'm mustering up because we're trying to create a new conscious habit around this. Normally it's 6 a.m. and then I move at like 8, and now I'm trying to move at 5:30.
Yeah.
And we've been doing this for about 2 weeks now, and she's like, already in that, like, I'm not seeing a difference, and I don't really think this is doing anything, and I'm sacrificing 45 minutes of sleep. And she starts over exaggerating this whole entire situation. So we went from waking up at 6 a.m. to waking up at 5:30. So it's 30 minutes of sleep. It's not 45 minutes.
Hey, when you're tired, you're tired.
And the thing is we've been going to bed 15 to 30 minutes earlier. So she's not losing any sleep.
We didn't go to bed till like 3 on Saturday.
No. I'm talking about our regular routine.
Our regular. Your regular, not mine.
And so she kind of started, and so for me, all I hear is, I'm not losing weight fast enough, so I'm not getting up 30 minutes early anymore. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this was totally associated with aesthetics for you. For me, it was associated with starting the day off with good movement, getting my blood going, getting my body moving, spending time with somebody that I really enjoy, having a cup of coffee, doing some meditation, and I fucking lost it this morning.
Aww.
I lost it.
Yeah.
Danielle didn't lose it. I let her shit affect my decision.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck this. And I rolled over and I just ignored her for and I think she got up and exercised. I think she felt bad about it and was like, but she was expecting something and here's the other thing. She doesn't have any weight to lose.
No.
She doesn't have any fat to lose.
Nope.
She's in autopilot mode for the most part. She just does her thing. Super fucking sexy. But this is one of those things that I try to tell people all the time. I'm like, if you think that you're any different by looking at Danielle and thinking that she's just got all her shit together and she doesn't struggle with the same emotional mentality things that everybody else does, you guys are all fucking wrong, dude. Because she literally in 2 weeks expected
a difference,
something to look different. I don't know what she wants to look different. I'm not quite sure.
I'm gonna call that a momentary mindset, though, for her.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things where, you know, I let, and so I'm mindful of it. And this is where I think everybody needs to work towards first.
Yeah.
I'm mindful that I let her shit affect what I was supposed to do that morning. Because that's for me. It's not for us.
Yeah.
It's great that she's there, but it's for me. It's for me to get up, move some blood, grab a book, get my mind rolling. I think the body moves the mind. So if you take care of your body and you honor your body, then your mind continues to grow. So that I just was looking forward to. Fuck my whole day up.
Yep.
And I was like literally gotten that mentality like everybody does, where I'm like, fuck this, the day's over. I already missed all my initial benchmarks that I've committed to in the morning, so the day's a wash.
I had the same morning.
And I was going to wash away the entire day and then just like binge Netflix.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? Fuck that. Get up, drink your lemon water with salt, get the coffee brewing, get outside, ride the bike. And then as soon as I went into my mode of what my habits were and the things that I know to be true that actually get you moving forward to what brings you fulfillment, they almost instantly snapped out of it.
Yeah.
Almost instantly. I was like, oh, the day's not lost.
Okay.
And that's when I started texting you. I was like, how you doing? What's up? Do you want a podcast this week? You're like, dude, I'm off today. I'm like, fuck, let's podcast today. And it just so happened to work out. And now look, by 1 p.m., I've accomplished everything by 1 p.m. that I actually wanted to get done this entire week.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. I only wanted to get a podcast done and get that in and write, and I got most of my writing done.
Nice.
And so for the most part, I have some tattoos this week, but those are like scheduled. I can't execute on those until they're done. But the personal things that I wanted to get done for my own resource center and my website and stuff, I finished.
Nice.
Because I got up and was like, do not be a fucking victim right now, and do not let this energy get fucking wasted and poured into dwelling over Danielle's bullshit this morning at 5:30, because that was her bullshit, not mine.
Yeah.
And And I gained all my energy back and was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And now I'm back on. So I totally understand where it's really easy to do. And if you're unconscious, then that just happens every day. It's just this cycle that just keeps on going. But that's where number 2 comes in for me. The second place I put energy in. That's the stuff that only directly affects me.
Yeah.
And indirectly affects number 1. So all your other relationships and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So me getting up in the morning and moving and doing meditation with Danielle indirectly affects her because she's doing it for her own shit. But it directly affected me, and I let her shit alter my energy in number 2, which is fucking retarded. It's stupid.
I do that constantly.
But that's what we do.
Yeah.
So that's the part with number 2 where it's like I joke about tattooing. It's like, fucking nothing to do with anybody else. And you're like, I want to get this tattoo, I want to get this thing. And then you spend 6 hours on Pinterest looking for new tattoos, and then you don't do it. And then you email me, and then I don't hear from you for 4 fucking months. And then you email me again, and then a bunch of time goes by. So it's like it's this weird energy, this ebb and flow of energy that you were giving and taking because you're worried about what everything else is thinking about your decision that actually only affects you and indirectly affects. So that now is turning into a weird negative energy.
Yeah.
And that negative energy is going out to the universe, and people are feeling it. They're feeling your anxiety around making a decision about a tattoo.
Yeah. That's my...
It's fucking weird, right?
Yeah, but that's like daily life. I promise you my 5 a.m. self goes through that whole fight every morning.
Yeah.
But what's funny about your story is that Danielle and I just had a conversation last weekend where I was like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, everything's great. Life is beautiful. And I was like, with anybody else in any other situation, I would call you a fucking liar right now. But I knew. And she was like, yeah, right now, everything is beautiful.
Yeah, we sit down at night, man, and I try to ask her, is there anything that's bothering you? Is there some shit we can work on? And I don't think I've gotten a negative response in, I don't know, 3 or 4 months or something.
Yeah.
So she's just like so in the moment and so mindful and just processing things as they come and dealing with them and putting the energy in the right places at the right times that it's just filling her up constantly.
Yeah. What I love about Danielle is she can, we joke all day long, but then she can drop like this paragraph of knowledge on us because most of our communication is through text. But I don't know. She can get deep with you without you even realizing it. And then all of a sudden you receive this gem and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. There's so much, there's so much there that I need to sit with for 20 minutes.
But she's also one of those people, she's a rare person. She doesn't even know it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what adds to the rareness of those people. Yeah. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just Danielle. And it's like, no, I don't think you don't get it. You literally alter the space just by walking in there with your fingers crossed in front of you with that shit-eating grin on your face and just generally happy about life for no apparent reason.
It's amazing.
But there's a ton of reasons why she is, but it comes off so effortless. People are like, what the fuck?
I feel like it's something you're born with or you're not. But I know she's worked on it really hard.
But okay.
Tell me.
So when you say you're setting up a space where you're giving yourself justification to just lie and live in your bullshit. Because you're like, no, some people are just born with it, not me. Some people are just born with it, and then it's giving you your justification to live in your nonsense.
But we know though, scientifically, that your hormones impact who you are. Mm-hmm. Your gut bacteria impacts your emotional state.
Which means you should what?
Eat right.
You should honor your body first thing.
Eat right. Which 99% of the time we do. But anyway, there are physiological things that impact your emotional and mental states.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that are set up for success physiologically, probably better than some.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that, but the thing is if you take them right now in this time in their life, you're like, oh, these guys are just blessed genetically. let's use a bad diet, for instance. Like a lot of us know people that have a bad diet and they're fucking jacked.
Can eat whatever they want. Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck? I fucking promise you 20 years from now, there'll be a train wreck. Their body won't know what the fuck to do with that.
You think so?
Yeah, because you can alter all your epigenetics and stuff through consistent. They're just more resilient now. And they don't, and I use myself as an example for that in the sense that I spent 15 years trashing my body, trashing it. But I didn't really have like a bunch of issues.
Trashing it physically, though. I mean, like you were.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like for most people that knew me when I opened Red Side originally, they would come in and I would be smashing a Slurpee and a bag of Butterfingers.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah, every day.
Oh, my God.
And like literally, I was 10% body fat and I didn't have
Yeah.
any issues and I was only sleeping a couple hours a night and I was like, I felt great. I had energy throughout the day. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it catches everybody.
It does.
It will catch. It is not sustainable for the long game. And that's a weird thing because you have to put faith and trust in the minimal amount of research that we know about the human body now. You kind of just have to like, oh, I know this is right because it feels right now and hopefully in the long game. But that's the thing is like when I was doing that, I knew something was kind of wrong on the surface. Like I was like, I don't know if sleeping 2 hours every night is probably good. I don't know if that much sugar is probably, is this going to catch me one day? I could slowly start to feel the bogging, the clouding of my mind. Yeah, I was getting migraines 3 days a week. So I started to get these like signs and stuff of, what was catching me. But creatures of habit. You're like, yeah, but this is what got me where I was. Mm-hmm. And then life says, no, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And blows out 3 discs in your back and destroys your hormones. I had a testosterone count of 49 at one point.
Jesus. What's it supposed to be?
Low is 400.
Low is 4.
Normal for my age at the time was 700 to 900.
So what did you do?
Went through the testing world of
hormone replacement.
The hormone replacement, and then a bunch of tests on like blood work and trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. I wasn't absorbing vitamin D anymore.
Yep.
So there's all these different, and that's like an energy management thing, and then your hormones are off, which has to do with your sleep, and now that's a compiling effect because your hormones are already low. You're not sleeping anymore. You're adding more stress to your body. Everything you're doing is now stress, and then you're not sleeping, so you're not repairing from all of that. There's no adaptation that's happening, and then you start to regress fast, like ridiculously rapid. Like over like 30 days, I was a fucking mess.
Yeah,
and it happened almost instantly. The signs were trickling and happening, but the body eventually just is like, no.
Yeah. Do you feel like you as a world a global you? Do you feel like we have to hit that emergency point before we recognize the end of our capacity?
I think for a lot of people, that's an interesting take on that. That how do you know unless you go there?
Yeah, because I feel like my whole thing that I've always told myself is, well, I've always thought that's more than I can handle, and I've handled it. So I've always just added that one extra thing.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where people talk about the wisdom of old people, and we don't value that wisdom enough, in my opinion, anymore. But you can experience it, or you can gain a lot of knowledge around reading and being around the right people and being like, oh,
yeah.
There's a ton of examples out there.
Yeah. So what do you do to manage your energy around? I mean, you cut out bad relationships.
Yeah, anything toxic goes. And then if you start looking at where I find fulfillment of stuff coming in, anytime I have an idea or a curiosity, I do it.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. I just do it.
Every time.
Yeah, every time.
Okay.
Because the thing is that if it takes, I use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a perfect example. 4 weeks ago, I went with Tim, and the whole fucking day, I was like, dude, I'm a human being. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna get fucking choked the fuck out. I don't even know what's going on. This is a thing that I know this is a skill set. Like, but am I gonna be good at it? Am I not? Are these people?
Had you ever done it before?
No, not in a setting like that. Like we have shit within back when I went through the Q course, there were courses and stuff where you have basic knowledge around, and then some shooting
Grappling.
courses. Yeah. So I understood the premise of it, but when you go into a world of people that like they've been doing this for 40 years, it can be intimidating, right? And it can be one of those things where I had no reason to challenge myself physically and mentally and emotionally and have to face any kind of fear.
Yeah.
I had no reason to. I had zero reason. There was no reason, right? Like, if you really look at, like, do I feel like I have my life together and shit's fucking good? Yeah. Am I peaceful and happy and, have a great homeostasis around my entire life? For sure.
But you have fun with Tim.
Yeah, exactly.
You like physical exertion.
So I started looking at the upside of that stuff. I'm like, okay, well, there's like going to a new challenging situation, going to get some fitness in, get to hang out with Tim. I don't get to see him that much. And I was also curious. I'm curious about everything.
Me too.
Everything. I don't give a fuck what it is. Like Andy Reardon started reloading bullets.
Yeah.
I don't want to reload, but I want to know how it works.
Yeah.
And now that I know somebody that's doing it, I want to like hang out with them for a day and reload some bullets. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And then if you do that, there's no questions in your mind of like who you are and what makes you tick. Because you've tried everything.
Tried everything, yeah.
You've tried anything that was in your proximity. You're like, oh, fuck, I want to try that. Let's do it. So I added BJJ once a week to my routine, and I've taken off Tuesdays now so I can drive down south and train at this specific gym because there was a whole bunch of other stuff related to it. The atmosphere of it, the people that were there, the camaraderie. There's a whole bunch of stuff that added to that. And so now I realize that expenditure, because that Tuesday I was done, physically annihilated, emotionally annihilated, mentally just like checked the fuck out. Because like remember, from 5:30 a.m. until 11 when I left, I was like fucking BJJ. What the fuck am I doing? It's gonna be hard. Is it gonna be hard? I don't know. We all do that normal shit when we're going into new situations. I try not to be. But I found myself thinking about it a lot during the day. So then when I went there, and it was very physically challenging and very emotionally challenging, and there's moments where you're like, you go into that like fight or flight, like if someone's trying to fucking choke me out,
Yeah.
So that happens, and then so I spent a good bit of my energy for a 1 hour class.
Yeah.
Like almost all of it that day.
You were dead.
I was fucking trashed. But the amount of energy I spent into it gave me enough for me to have a smile on my face the whole ride home.
That's awesome.
And then when Danielle came home to have the conversation with me about it, I was still smiling about it. So it wasn't bad energy that went out, right? It wasn't anything that was traumatic to me because I just looked at the whole entire positive experience. So now that's added into my life. Do climbing, boulder once a week, no matter what. So I just have things where it's like, does this fit? And then if you keep trying things, you're like, okay, this has more upside and it's adding more than the other thing I was doing.
Yeah.
So I'm out. And this is what gets people in weird situations. So like, let's just say you're doing, bar Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. And then you go try a CrossFit class on Tuesday. You feel bad about canceling your Tuesday bar class because you feel like you're disrespecting a relationship now that you've built, even though adding CrossFit on a Tuesday afternoon was good for you.
Yeah.
And it felt good for you, and it didn't directly affect anybody else.
Yep.
Only you. And so we all do that. We start manipulating our decisions and stuff based on the guilt of removing ourselves out of situations and relationships that we feel have more value than they actually do.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I make those agreements in my head all the time. Mm-hmm. Like I made a list the other day. I am the opposite though, which I need to be more present about that. Like I think about this stuff that saps energy more than I think about the stuff that returns energy. And and then I finally sat down the other day at work and made a list of all the things that I do during the day to save energy. And then thought about like, what are the implications of these things on my life? Because sometimes I get trapped in my own patterns of I only do this because I know that if I alter the pattern, it'll expend more energy.
Something could.
Yep.
And then this could happen and that could happen. The what ifs.
Yep. Yep.
What if that? What if the?
Absolutely. But I never thought about making the decision to opt into something simply because it does return energy to you. So that's a good point. I need to be more mindful of that.
Yeah. So I think, removing, to your question is like you remove all of that shit, because right now every one of us could make a list, except for me and Danielle. A whole bunch of us could make a list right now of like, what are the things that I actually dread doing every day? And a lot of them aren't associated with your paycheck,
Yeah.
which provides you your home and your logistics and all that other kind of shit. And then there's some things where you got to keep it. You could, like, for instance, when Tristan played football, I fucking hated going to football games.
Yeah.
Me and Danielle would be like driving there. It's like silence in the car. And we're like, and it wasn't because we didn't want to support our son and him pursuing athletic endeavors. It was the culture of Texas football that I was like,
it sucks.
Fuck this, man. Like, my kid's on the D team.
Yeah.
And come to find out, there's 5 fucking teams. Oh. There should be one team.
There should be one team.
And you try out, and either you make it or you don't. That's and if weird. He doesn't make it, then great. He moves on to something else. He fails at something and learns that experience and goes on to something else. So anyways, he's on the D squad. And so we show up to scrimmages on a Saturday. He's in the 7th grade or something. And the parents are going fucking apeshit. Bad calls, the coach calling the wrong play.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that there were that many football experts among all the parents.
You're in Texas, everyone's a football expert.
Dude, I had no idea. And me and Danielle, we just wanted to show up and see our kids, go on this journey in their athletics.
But had he really enjoyed that and been really thankful for you being there?
And that's why we went.
Yeah.
That's why we went, right? But if I were to sit there and dread going to that and it be this soul-sucking thing, knowing my kid doesn't give a fuck on whether or not we're there, we wouldn't have gone. We wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't have gone there trying to fulfill some kind of missing hole for me through my kid and something, because that's the aura that gets put off is like, I want the best for my kid. It's like, did you ever actually sit down and ask? Because 3 football games in, I'm riding home with Tristan, and I was just kind of like, because you get the vibe off your kids, but you want the best for your kids, and sometimes you force them to do shit, but you have to sit there and ask, like, why do I want this for my kid?
Yeah. What are they actually getting out of it?
Yeah, I'm like, dude, do you even like football? And he's like, it's kind of quiet, and he's like, Dad, I don't want to play football, man. Aww. And he was terrified I could feel him being terrified to tell me that. And I was like, oh my God, thank goodness. Because now I'm like, I don't have to go to football anymore.
Got it.
And he was like, oh, you're not mad? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Why would I? And then I have to go through my own shit of like, why did he feel uncomfortable to tell me that he didn't want to play football? Well, he thought that I played football in high school because all kids think that their dads play football. I didn't play football in high school.
You didn't play football.
I played my freshman year and was like, this is fucking stupid. I don't like this. And I quit. I moved on to another thing. It just didn't interest me. Our football team wasn't good. There's probably a whole bunch of factors. But I was like, why, how have I created, and that was a valuable teaching lesson for me, is like, how did I create a space where he felt scared to lay some honesty on me?
Yeah.
So of course I, created different conversations around him to where now he knows he can come to me and tell me, and hopefully we've created most of that conversation. But in that moment, I knew that he was scared to tell me something because he was afraid to disappoint me, which I didn't like that between a father and son relationship. I don't want my kids to ever feel afraid. Back to energy, I don't want them to feel like they have to expend energy and make decisions based on what they think I'm going to think about them. So that's a thing that I'm very conscious about with my kids, is I don't want them to feel like I always fall in the number one category.
Yeah.
Well, how is this directly going to impact my mom and my dad?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but at some point it does. And at some point we ask them to. I don't know. I have a ton of guilt around that just because.
Yeah, but it really, because I think that's the other thing too, that us parents, we look at kids and we don't give them enough credit on how capable they actually are. Kids are super resilient, and when you start talking about like common sense, they may not understand what their feelings mean and stuff, but making decisions based on what feels good, If kids have no pressures, they normally do amazing things.
Yeah.
They're super independent. That's where their creativity is flourished and blooming and cultivated. And we diminish that. And that's the other thing I have a problem with the school system is we're like, no, this is what we want you to do. This is don't disappoint me. You know, and I'm like, no, fuck all that. Like, I don't want you to feel any pressures about what, you know, you think I want you to accomplish in your high school days. I don't give a fuck if you play football or play in the band or whatever. Get the high school diploma, but be a good human being.
Yeah.
And whatever that means to you, as long as you're not raping and pillaging and murdering, then everything is fair game.
Yeah. Make your life what you want
Dude,
it to be.
if you want to explore your sexuality and gay and bisexual and I'm not saying, and this is another thing where we're probably a little progressive. Progressive isn't even the right word. You know, if you're, you know, the exploration of everything, as long as it isn't at the detriment of another human being, I don't give a fuck.
Absolutely.
Man. So, and my kids know that. We have these conversations all the time around them. And, you know, I think that that's the greatest gift that I can give my kids is knowing that they don't have pressure from their parents to execute on a specific ideal.
Yeah. I don't remember if it's in Girl Wash Your Face or if I've just heard Rachel Hollis say it a few times, but she talks about how one of the like life-changing moments was when she went to the Tony Robbins event and he asked what person in your life growing up was the person that you most wanted to impress, and who did you have to be to do that? Mm. And she talks about how her father was that person for her and how she basically like lived her life to be the person that he wanted her to be until she had this realization. And I have massive worries around that with my kid because he's so like...
Yeah. He just does his thing.
He does his thing.
Yeah, but even if you put pressures on him, he wouldn't give a fuck.
I know, but he's also like, he's honest to a fault because he just doesn't know how to not be honest. Yeah. And I don't want to rein that in because I want him to keep saying and being who he is. But there's also like some areas where I need him to soften it.
Yeah. Yeah, where it's the honesty can become abrasive and it can hurt people's feelings and it can, but that's what I mean by, you know, there's a difference between honesty and creating some tactfulness in the way you express that honesty. That's a totally different conversation. Like you have to be tactful about it. You can't be walking around calling everybody a piece of shit.
I know.
Well, I was just being honest.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, you're being an asshole.
Yeah, you're being an asshole based on your. Now, there's a difference between judging and then giving perspective based on honesty.
Yeah.
But then there are some things that are like, I mean, you know, we talked about this with the compassion and tolerance. Like those things, they just go hand in hand in everybody I meet, like straight away, no matter what. I don't give a shit what your beliefs are. Honestly, I don't really care. Because I always know there's an opposing view to balance out the energy in the world. There just is. It just is what it is.
That's true.
So as long as you're not taking rights from people, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. You know, because people get wrapped around these minute things and politics and all this other kind of stuff. So I'm like, yeah, but did it like really catastrophically hurt somebody like to where it got them to where they can't pursue their own happiness unless they allowed those specific, and I understand how certain decisions and stuff can emotionally affect people from higher up, but some people need to sit back and actually go, does that actually really alter my daily actions?
Yeah. And I don't know.
And it doesn't. And so, but that's a hard thing because culture, what's being cultivated in culture is obviously affects certain groups more than others. And I don't have experience in that, right? Like I was growing up a white fucking male for lack of a better term. So, you know, I can't speak on that. I can only just from conversations and observations and stuff. But, you know, imagine growing up at my age, I couldn't even imagine in my 20s being a gay black male.
Yeah.
Like I can understand that societal pressure if you let it. I totally understand it, but I also think, again, if you let it is the linchpin.
Yeah.
You know, because is there somebody out there that is going to love you and all the other external noise? Now, trust me, if you're just getting that pressure constantly and that like that feeling of like, man, I can't be who I am, dude, it sucks. Because my best friend is like that. I didn't even know until he was in his mid-30s. But I mean, I fucking knew, but we didn't like know. But as I sat back and remembered like our high school days and junior high days and even our mid-20s and stuff, I was like, fuck, man. Like you've been holding that for a fucking long time.
You didn't know until he was in his 30s?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so that's one of those things where it's like I don't have experience around that, but what I do have experience in is that we react. We create that reaction.
Yeah.
We let it affect us if we want to. Do some people get more pressure than others? For sure. But what you feel is societal pressure, a straight white man may be getting it way more from his father than you actually did from society. And how did he let that affect him? Perception.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the truth. I'm just saying as an example, we all perceive energy and where we're supposed to be putting it at different levels, whether it be from society and culture and our communities or our family or our partner or our kids. We all create those pressures ourselves.
Yeah.
So how we manage where that energy is coming and going is you know, the point of this conversation.
So without societal constructs, do you feel like you'd be in a different place right now?
No.
No.
Because I think I do keep an eye on biology to an extent, and I sort of embrace some of that stuff. And I know there's just some things that are just, they are what they are, you know, feminine and masculine traits, masculinity, my role in, that's one thing that like, I'm not in a space where I would let anything manipulate my role as I see it as my truth. Mm-hmm. You know, leader, protector, masculine, you know, patriarch of my family, whatever the fucking label you want to put on the shit. Now, does that, I don't want that to be taken from me, but I think that if your role is, you know, a politician that does X, Y, and Z, like, I don't want anybody to take that from you. If yours is gay and you want to get married and do all those other kind of things, like, I don't think that us driving the narrative to be like, this is what every man should be, and this is what every woman should be, and this is what every family should look like. That shit fucking drives me insane.
Yeah.
My role as I sit it is like, you know, when we talked about politics the other day, I'm like, look, dude, my role is like, there's the oppositions opposing each other, which creates balance within our democracy, which allows this country to provide more freedoms in the entire history of man. And my role, as I see it, and what's just been delivered to me in my time, is the protector
of that freedom.
The physical violence protector of this. That is my role in society.
Yeah.
So I have to leave that better than I got it. And that's it. So outside of that, that's where I don't spend energy in some of these other topics, because it's not my role. Like, we elected people in those specific positions. Now, do I think we need to be aware of it and question? For sure. But to put energy in it that it's a detriment to my own life is just not where I go. And that's where these conversations fall in number 3 for me.
Yeah.
You know, am I aware of the Brett Kavanaugh and the Dr. Ford conversation?
Yeah.
Yes. Do I give a fuck? No. And do I think it's an important thing and it's shifting policies in America? For sure. Here's what sucks about the conversation. All the investigations, whether you agree with them or not, and all these other things, whether you agree with them or not, the fact of the matter is the people that represent us voted the motherfucker in. So sometimes you win some and sometimes you lose some. So the side that thinks they're losing this entire piece, remember, there's an opposing group that thinks they're winning on this, and vice versa. And that shit is just what it is. Like, this is human condition for what it is. And so for me to be the guy that sits in the fucking middle and doesn't give a shit, you know, I think that there's a lot of shit that I agree with on the right, and there's a lot of shit that I agree with on the left. and I understand the arguments and the point of views on both sides. But my role isn't to be in there trying to alter policy to, if it was, I would start running for a city councilman in Leander and build my political base and standing there. And then next thing you know, I'm going for mayor. And I would climb the political ladder if I actually wanted to go and represent people that I felt weren't being represented. Because at the end of the day, we're all being represented somewhere. Whether or not we're majority or minority, I don't know. That's a whole nother random ass topic. But is where I sit as far as energy on why I put that in number 3. It's not my role in society, for one. And the energy going into it on whether or not I want to be like, this is fucking bullshit, Dr. Ford's lying, or this is fucking bullshit, we believe Dr. Ford, or this is fucking bullshit, Brett Kavanaugh, this and da. Like, I don't know either of them. I've never met either of them. I've listened to both their interviews, and I literally just sat back and was like, I don't fucking know.
You don't feel like the conversation, though, around this has impacted the culture around us, though? I feel like
because we let it, and I think that's something to keep in account, that when national policies that affect all of us are in conversation and they're being so force fed to us, but at the end of the day, if we're really going to look at it, Dr. Ford is going to go on with her life. Brett Kavanaugh is, by his record, made very good decisions for 40 something years as a fucking judge. And there's going to be some shit.
Very good, but okay.
But you know what I mean, though.
I know what you mean.
He's served honorably for the most part. It hasn't had anything. If we're going to remove,
he's never gone to jail. He's never been
there's not all the the normal bullshit that we're arguing about. So at the end of the day, it's going to be fine. To me, it's not catastrophic. He's not going to go in there and be like, okay, we're fucking shutting down. What would affect all of us? We're changing the Second Amendment and we're banning guns across the United States, and he's pushing for it, and then all of a sudden it's obviously not going to happen because he's a Republican, but if
that's also something that you're really invested in, though, because that's your
no, for sure, and that's my life. Shit, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, would I be like, would that be one of the things where we're all rallying together and every American's marching the street with their guns? Would I go Probably. And march and be a part of that? I don't know if until that situation ever. My initial reaction is no, I don't have fucking time for that bullshit. Yeah. But there are certain pieces where, if you look at the basis argument of it, is the American people have to have the ability to arm themselves. Yeah. Because once they take the Second Amendment, then they take the First, and and what history has spoken for itself. That's one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. But then we start talking about issues like abortion. We got on the abortion issue. It's I know that affects a lot of people, and so that's something that we're just going to have to sit down. I think policymakers need to sit down and quit with this whole we have to oppose the other side just to oppose the other side bullshit, because the points that are made on one side and the points that are made on the other all make perfect sense. But you motherfuckers need to get in the same room and figure this shit out. That's why we elected you. Yeah. And that's the part that's frustrating for me, is that it's to a point now, and I think the narrative may change eventually, that it's just causing division against both parties, which is dividing the country, which in return, because the reaction to that is there's always a equal reaction. It's causing people to become divided initially, and then everybody's starting to now come together. So I think in the long run, again, just based on the way the system is and the checks and balances, it's going to work itself out. But there's a lot of people that are losing a ton of energy around that conversation.
Well, and I think you have to think about the social implications, though, because I know you were getting upset with me for having so much energy in it. Not getting upset with me.
Not upset. You're reading emotion into my text.
I know. But I feel like in this day and age, when we look at that conversation happening on a national level, and there's so many women out there knowing that just like when celebrities commit suicide, there's more there's more suicides in the general population. Yeah, for sure. Just like big topics trigger.
It creates a subconscious justification around.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of women watch that conversation and go, nothing has fucking changed.
Yeah, more defeated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I also see, the other side of the coin, and I'm not saying I agree with it or not, but there's, the fucking Duke lacrosse team. Every one of those men right now are fucking women can just attack whenever they want. We just have to believe them because women
Yeah.
don't lie. It's like that
We can
conversation.
get into the statistics of that.
No, for
happening,
sure,
though.
but that's what I'm saying is because then there's all these arguments about, then it breaks down into different communities and different whatever, because then there's stats like in New York City, for instance, where up to 40% have been proven by the confessions later that that 1 in 3 statistic, if you break it down in New York City, 40% of them, all of them came back in later and were like, I just made it up.
You don't know that that's the truth, though.
But we don't know any of it's the
Yeah.
truth. That's what's problem with these
But we
conversations.
also know that most rapes, most assaults go unreported. So you're not even looking at the population.
No, for sure. Yeah,
The
we don't know
people
the
that
total
actually
number. We never know the total number.
go in and report are.
And that's what's tough though, because for every view on one side, there's
Yep.
a
always
1,000
a-
men that are like, I spent 3 years for falsely being raped, and then finally testing comes out, and I've been
Show
proven
me
innocent,
what.
and boom, So, they're all over. You just choose to not look at them and acknowledge that they actually exist. But that's
I've
part
just
of
never.
that's part of the
encountered that
conversation.
situation.
We get so emotionally attached to one side of the coin that we refuse to see the other.
Yeah.
And we all do it. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. It's like my wife was abused as a child. And so this isn't something that's like so far removed from
Yeah.
it. Because here's the deal. If I ever see this motherfucker, and this is probably going to use against me in court, if I ever see this motherfucker,
Yeah, I'd kill him too.
it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good, dude, because he's gone, 30 years without punishment.
So
Yeah, so I'm not
just
removed from the conversation.
I know
like
you're
you
not
think,
removed
so,
from the conversation, but just to like jab at that instance, though, like I don't know if there's even, I don't know. I struggle with the ability for men to even feel the empathy of the other side, because like there's all these conversations around like, if it happened to a man, nobody would care. It does happen to men all the time, and people do care. Aside from that,
as Joe Rogan would say,
Yeah.
men. That stand-up is hilarious.
it is. It's good.
It's really good.
But aside from that situation, I think there is a mentality where men just go, "What's the big deal?" Like it's not a big deal.
No, and see, that's where we're generalizing men, because it is a big deal.
Yeah, and that's what
And that's coming from a man. Just
I
so you
need
know.
people to say though. Is that like, yes, maybe we don't agree on this one political issue, but it is a huge deal and people care about it.
Yeah,
and
so
it's
like to give
not
you
okay.
another example, there's a big outrage right now in the military community because there was a law passed that we were trying to send money and aid to Afghanistan to create a program where pedophilia was because that's really big. Men abuse male boys in Afghanistan at like a 80% rate or something crazy.
Jesus.
So we tried some officer, male, saw this and was a problem and tried to create a program where we could get funding to help set up a system to prevent this from being a part of their culture. And it got denied and turned down. So now it's like, there's millions of Afghani boys that are getting molested every year by some adult, and we identified it, and we had somebody that became the face of it and tried to raise funding for it, and it got shot down. So
Why did it get shot down?
I don't know, politics
Yeah.
and stuff. But so that's the thing where it's like, yeah, we have all these issues in America where women now just feel like bang, but how many soldiers now are feeling like you asked me to go to this other country to do good,
And now you won't let me do good.
yeah, and now you're taking that ability away to do good. So this is where it's so complex on like it's happening everywhere, and it's in every group, and everybody has something wrong happening to them on some side of the coin or another. And there's so many issues. That's why, like, when I see the president's job, I'm like, no fucking way, man, not a chance in hell.
Nobody.
I don't even want to be a fucking senator, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of information to take in, and I admire an individual regardless of all the lying and the betraying and the corruption. I admire an individual that's at least willing to sit in there and take all those shots every day. Fuck that. Fuck that, man. That's a lot of work, dude. You know, because imagine sitting on the Kavanaugh stuff right now, man. Like looking at both sides of it. There's truths to both sides of those stories. There's a bunch of lies on both sides of those stories, and then the timing of it is so weird. And it's just like you're sitting there as a human being, and like I don't know either of these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And having to make a national decision based on the information that's being presented to you. And you're like, I don't know either of these people.
Yeah.
That's bizarre to me, man. And that takes a specific individual that is not me. Because honestly, at the end of the day, I'm such a simple motherfucker. I'll be like, yeah, just get rid of both these motherfuckers. Who's the next nomination?
Yeah. Which is what should have happened.
Right? Like that,
Arguably.
I would have just been like, dude, this is too much.
Too much.
Sorry.
Too much money.
I'm
Too much interest.
I'm sorry that
Go
you
to the
got
next guy.
smeared, but I think you'll be okay. I think you have a lot of money. I think you're fine. I think your wife loves you and you have 2 daughters that you still need to focus on. I think you're okay as not the Supreme Judge this time.
But do you understand that
So-
was the argument?
Well, and that's part of the point, but you have to look at the opposition where they're like, no, like that's because there is validity and truth to continue the fight on with their story
Well, yeah.
as much on the opposing side.
Go
So,
have a private investigation and.
but for me, because I'm so selfish,
Yeah.
I don't want to put energy into it.
Yeah.
I would just look at the two of them and be like, y'all are too complicated. Next,
Yeah.
which could be the
Which
right
should
answer.
have been the national discourse.
Could have been the right answer.
And is
could have been
why
the wrong answer.
so many
Yeah.
women out there upset today and men. But
Yeah, but nobody wins in that.
yeah.
Nobody wins. It's a lose-lose no matter
I
what.
mean, the
it ends up.
country wins.
Nah, not necessarily, because you're going to have half the country that'd be like, that's bullshit. We just smeared that man's reputation and we tossed it out like it was nothing. So
No,
that's
Or
the
just
problem.
punted for the next guy.
But that's the problem with the conversation. It feels like punting to the other opposition because you feel like the woman got some justice out of it. But on the opposite coin, it's going to be half the country is going to be outraged as much as you guys are
Yeah.
that he got his nomination. So that's the part where I'm like, it's such a tricky thing.
Sure. It's all
So back to
confusing.
kind of like wrapping up and getting this kind of energy thing, but essentially just what we talked about today was just keeping in mind that like you have your direct relationships, and I think you need to always establish that relationship with yourself, figure out that best common thing so you can create a triage list of where your highest valued relationships are across the things that are important to you. Work, family, and social is normally where most of them fall. And then now creating some efficiency on how much energy goes out into those decisions because they directly affect somebody else. They directly affect some committed thing, because when we're in committed relationships and we wrong those, it does affect us emotionally. So you always want to make the best decisions there, and that's where the most of your energy goes into. The second place is the individual decisions that directly affect you and indirectly, number one. Those ones for me don't take a lot of energy, but they're those ones that are like, they give you zaps of just good shit back because it was something that you either had some kind of curiosity about or something that was going to connect you to something emotionally that you're creating some kind of anxiety around because of the pressures of X.
Yeah.
And then there's number 3, which is just the shit you're aware of. But if it's something that you're going to put energy in and it doesn't add to you, or it doesn't add to the thing you're putting energy into, because there will be times in your life where you go put energy into something at the detriment of yourself.
Yeah.
But the long game of that, you're going to look back at it and be like, you know what? I put myself in a situation that was like I was the firing squad, but though I added to 10 other people's lives, and that could in return give you something. So there will be those times where it may not be directly affecting the relationship that you're in, but you'll see some wrong injustice thing happening in the moment, and you're going to have to like kind of step out and make number 3 number 1.
Yeah.
But for the most part, from a selfish aspect, and it sounds selfish, but you have to keep in mind those things that you made commitments to. So it's actually not selfish to not put energy into those things, because now that energy is going to the things that you actually committed to and the things that you value the most. So you can create a ton of anxiety around number 3 because shit, we lost 15 minutes just now talking about the politic thing because you're super passionate about it. And it's not something that I hate on. It's not something where I'm like, Bethany, don't fucking do that. It's fucking retarded. You're losing a bunch of energy. I think if it's something that's curious to you, that you want to be aware to, that you want to create knowledge around, that's one thing. But to let it alter your mood, that's where you know you're giving energy. And if you went from like if the perfect day is you wake up and you exercise, you have a great breakfast, your kid tells you he loves you to death and he gives you the best hug you've ever had. You and your husband have like some morning booty quickie time and like, a quick kiss, drink some coffee together. He smacks you on your ass on the way out to work. And then you pull up on Facebook and that fucking post about him being nominated destroys your morning.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, you might want to start reevaluating how your energy is being distributed. So that's what I mean by number 3.
That makes sense. It's just hard, man. I'm not there yet.
We'll get there one day.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming and hanging with me and talking about energy. I feel like we've been on an energy kick. We didn't even know what we were talking about until you walked in the door today. But we kind of have been on like, how are you and Danielle so efficient in the way that you spend energy? And that's it. I mean, it sounds like such a simple thing. And obviously there's some complexities in there about knowing yourself and creating honesty in some of your relationships and actually identifying what those are. And if you really start making a list, it can become overwhelming. But just the general concept of it is there's these 3 areas. And if you can figure out what things fit in each one of those, you're going to create a ton of efficiency across the board and realize that as you're spending energy out, you're going to be getting a lot of it in return. Yeah. Instead of just spending energy out and it just being lost to the fucking universe. And then feeling drained constantly.
And I think all the work that you and Danielle have done is super reflective. And the reason that like Dave and I like to be around you guys is that you can feel the work that you guys have put in and you can feel the calm with you guys. Like, just for super introverted people, it's hard for us to be around, like lots of energy of any kind. Yeah. But it's comfortable with you guys because you know who you are. Nothing's going to push you one way or the other.
Yeah, well, and there's something comforting about being around people that, like, if they're there, they want to be there. Yep. The shit they're talking about is because they're interested in it. If there's no falsities. Yeah. In anything they're doing, and it's comforting because you're not like, oh man, I wonder if they're like, do they actually want to be here? There's like, because we all do that. Like, is everybody having a good time at this birthday party that I'm having for my kid? I'm like, dude, if I invite a bunch of people over for dinner, I don't give a fuck how they're feeling. Dude, I'm just like there. We're having a good time. It's like, dude, if you don't want to be here, fucking leave, man. Yep. I'm not now like, ooh, what do you guys want to, like, what am I going to do to keep you guys engaged and entertained? It's like, dude, if you're not in the conversation and being able to create good energy with just being around people, then
know yourself well enough to show yourself out.
You're probably you're bearing a lot of stuff and you're clouded. You're unconscious to an extent, and I'm just not around a lot of unconscious people anymore. So we just don't have those issues anymore.
That's awesome. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, you're there. Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know why sometimes I see you so clouded in like what you have and where you're at and how your energy gets diverted instantly. Sometimes it gets like, ugh. Like almost instantly, you're like, fucking crushing today. And then it's like you bump into the wrong person at the office and you're like, fucking, ugh.
Yeah, that's true.
Gift search. Like,
I can own that.
I have to hide. I'm hiding now.
Yeah.
Fuck the world, But that's normal. Like, we want to protect ourselves from the things that we think is negative energy. And it's like, well, if you just don't give it energy, that is the protection. You don't have to hide from the situation. You don't have to avoid those people. You just... Yeah, do your thing, bro. Cool.
I think my brain just keeps working on it, and I've got to teach it how to not. Yeah. Anyway.
You'll get there. Well, again, I appreciate you coming out, and we'll probably wrap it up right there. Yeah. Good energy conversation. If anybody made it this far, man, again, we're super grateful that you put your energy into this past 2 hours, and at least maybe we had a conversation that got you questioning something and got your brain moving. And I guess that's kind of the point of this whole thing, is that we just keep our brains moving and not becoming complacent. So this may challenge a lot of people's ideas, and if it's shit where you're like, fuck, this guy is just stupid, that's fine. It doesn't mean anything to me. But if you're asking how certain people get to, this homeostasis of peace in almost every aspect of their life, I mean, it's a pretty good tool that, me and Danielle we kind of lean on pretty heavily. So again, thanks for hanging on the Be Early podcast, and see you guys next time. Bethany, say bye.
Bye.